Not every story of closeness between two people leads to love. Sometimes it leads to something more important, rediscovering yourself. Yuri is a successful, talented woman admired by everyone at work. But at home, her marriage feels cold and distant. Late nights, small kindnesses, and unexpected comfort from her gentle boss begin to awaken something inside her. Not love, but strength. This is a story of quiet healing, emotional courage, and finding the power to fight for what matters most. A gentle reminder that kindness can change a person, not by taking them away, but by helping them return to themselves. No one really knows how lonely a strong woman can be until you live as one. Yuri was that kind of woman, the type everyone praises, the type everyone envies. Beautiful, talented, always composed, always smiling. People around her admired her, thinking, she must be so lucky. She must have a perfect life. But the truth? Behind the smile, behind the perfectly ironed shirts, behind the flawless reports she handed in at work, was a woman who cried alone in silence. Yuri was brilliant at her job. She walked into the office every morning with confidence, handled challenges with calm precision, and never once showed a sign of weakness to her colleagues. She had built this image carefully, intentionally, because she thought, if I look strong enough on the outside, maybe no one will notice how broken I feel on the inside. Her coworkers often joked, Yuri's like a machine. Nothing can shake her. She's got it all, beauty, talent, success. If only they knew. At home, her marriage felt like a quiet battlefield. No fights, no shouting, just silence, coldness, a gap so wide she couldn't remember when it began, or why, or how. Her husband had stopped asking how her day went. She had stopped waiting for him to. Dinner was quiet. Nights were colder than the weather outside. And somehow, she convinced herself, this is just how marriage is. Maybe I'm expecting too much. But even the strongest person has moments of doubt. Even Yuri. At work, there was one person who unknowingly gave her a tiny island of calm in the storm she lived with. Kay, her boss. Kay wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't the kind of man people noticed at first glance. But he had something rare, kindness without agenda. The kind of kindness that didn't make you feel small, or weak, or indebted. He listened. Not out of obligation, not as a formality, but with quiet, genuine attention. Whenever Yuri struggled with a difficult project, Kay didn't criticize. He asked, how can I help you make this easier? Whenever the pressure mounted and deadlines loomed, he didn't add more. He simply said, you've handled worse. I believe in you. Little by little, without realizing it, Yuri found herself breathing easier whenever she spoke to him. Not because she felt attraction, not because she wanted something from him, but because it had been so long since anyone treated her like she mattered, like her feelings mattered, like her well-being mattered. She admired Kay's calm, his patience, his warmth. In a world where everyone seemed to expect her to be perfect, he was the rare person who let her just be human. Was that weakness? She wondered. To feel this way toward someone who wasn't her husband. To find comfort, not romance, in the quiet support of a colleague? No, she told herself, it wasn't weakness. It was survival. It was the human need to feel seen, But somewhere deep inside, Yuri also felt something shifting, something subtle. A crack in the carefully built armor she wore every day. One evening, as the office emptied, she stayed behind, not avoiding work, but perhaps avoiding home. Across the quiet room, Kay smiled gently. Long day? They all are. In that silence, she realized, strength isn't carrying everything alone, but quietly accepting small kindness without shame. That night, Yuri and Kay stayed later than usual. Then suddenly, thunder roared. A flash of lightning cut through the office windows. Yuri flinched. It wasn't rational. She knew that. She was a grown woman after all. But fear isn't always rational. Since she was a child, thunder had made her heart race in ways she couldn't explain. And in that split second, without thinking, she moved closer to Kay, almost instinctively, seeking warmth, safety, human reassurance. Her hand found his arm, just for a moment. Kay didn't pull away. He didn't make it awkward. He simply said, softly, "It's all right. It'll pass soon." The power went out a moment later, leaving them both in dim emergency lighting. The office, usually so sterile and bright, now felt almost intimate in its quietness. Not romantic, just human, honest. For the first time, Yuri let herself sit down without rushing to look busy, without pretending she wasn't tired or afraid. They talked, not about work, not about deadlines, about small things, childhood fears, family traditions, how both of them had once wanted to see the northern lights someday. Kay wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to dig into her life. He was simply present, listening, sharing. And for Yuri, who had gone so long without feeling truly seen, it felt strangely comforting. When the lights finally returned, so did the normal world. Emails, deadlines, expectations. But something inside her had shifted quietly in that darkness. After that night, she began to notice things differently. How Kay would ask, "Have you eaten today?" with the same casual concern one might ask about the weather, except it wasn't casual. It was genuine. How he'd leave her a coffee on stressful mornings without a word, just a small sticky note. "You've got this." How he seemed to understand, without explanation, that sometimes silence was the kindest response. Yuri didn't think of it as love, not in the way people whispered about in office gossip, not in the way stories on TV romanticized forbidden attraction. No, this was different. This was the warmth of two people who understood loneliness, who knew how heavy invisible burdens could become, who recognized in each other the quiet strength it took just to keep going. Their colleagues, of course, noticed. "Are you too?" "No," Yuri would smile, brushing it off. "Just coworkers." But deep down, even she knew it wasn't just that. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't desire. It was kindness, mutual respect. The small, gentle acts of humanity we too often overlook. Still, late at night, when she lay awake beside her husband's sleeping form, questions lingered. Why did Kay's kindness make her feel lighter? Why did her husband's silence weigh heavier than ever? Was she running towards something new? Or simply realizing what she had been missing? It wasn't about Kay, not really. It was about herself, about what she needed, about what she had forgotten she deserved. To feel heard, to feel cared for, to feel human, not just useful. The days passed, and their routine remained the same. Conversation soft, smiles subtle, a shared understanding growing between them. Nothing spoken, nothing expected. And yet, somewhere in the quiet exchanges, Yuri felt her heart slowly opening. Not to Kay, but to herself. Because what Kay offered wasn't temptation. It wasn't escape. It was a mirror, reflecting back the parts of herself she had long buried beneath responsibility and routine. One morning, Yuri didn't show up for work. No emails, no messages, no explanation. It wasn't like her. She wasn't the type to be late, let alone disappear without notice. Kay noticed immediately. The seat she usually filled, the coffee she usually brought, the quiet energy she carried into the office, all missing. For some reason, it unsettled him more than he expected. That afternoon, he found out from HR that she'd called in sick. Nothing serious, just exhaustion, maybe a cold. But still, he couldn't help but worry. Meanwhile, at home, Yuri lay curled beneath her blanket. Her head ached, her body ached. But more than that, her heart ached. Not from love, not from heartbreak, but from the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone. For the first time in a long while, her husband showed concern. He brought her water, asked if she needed medicine, sat beside her quietly while she drifted in and out of restless sleep. It wasn't much, but it was something. And that something tugged at a part of her heart she thought had gone numb. When did we stop caring like this? She wondered. When did I stop letting him in? When did he stop trying? Or did we both just get tired? The next day, when Yuri still didn't return to work, Kay made a quiet decision, not out of obligation, not out of some hidden motive, but simply because he cared. He showed up at her door, not with flowers, not with expectations, just with a simple bag of groceries, soup, tea, small comforts people forget to buy for themselves when they're unwell. She blinked in surprise when she saw him. There was no awkwardness between them, no hidden meanings, just kindness. Simple, honest kindness. They sat for a while, drinking tea, talking quietly. About work, about health, about the little things. And later that night, as Yuri lay awake, staring at the ceiling while her husband slept beside her, she thought about Kay, about her husband, about herself, about the way small acts of care could warm even the coldest, loneliest spaces in a person's heart. The next morning, she returned to work, her usual seat, her usual calm demeanor. But something inside her had softened, shifted. Kay greeted her with his familiar, quiet smile. Days passed, and nothing obvious changed between them. They didn't flirt. They didn't cross lines. They simply worked together, supported each other, shared brief glances of understanding when days grew heavy. Her coworkers still whispered, but Yuri knew the truth. Kindness isn't scandalous. Care isn't betrayal. And sometimes, the deepest connections we form aren't about romance. They're about reminding us who we are, what we need, and what we're capable of. There was a time, not long ago, when Yuri thought she might be falling in love with Kay. The thought scared her. Not because Kay had done anything wrong, not because she wanted to betray her husband, but because, for the first time in so long, someone had made her feel cared for. Someone had made her feel visible. But love? No. What she felt wasn't love. It was recognition. Kay had reminded her of what she had forgotten about herself. That she wasn't just a wife, a worker, a woman going through the motions of daily life. Through Kay's quiet, unwavering support, Yuri realized something important. She didn't need to run away to feel whole again. She didn't need someone new to rescue her. What she needed was to rescue herself. Kay had shown her what compassion looked like. And so, piece by piece, Yuri began to change. Not for Kay, not for appearances, but for herself. She started speaking more openly at home. Her husband listened. Perhaps for the first time in years, he truly listened. Slowly, things shifted. Kay remained exactly as he always had been, kind, supportive, respectful. A friend, a mentor. Somewhere along the way, Yuri stopped wondering what might have been. She looked at her husband now and saw not just the man he had been, but the man he was still trying to become again. And she realized she was becoming someone new, too. Kay had given her something priceless. Not his heart, not his affection, but something deeper. And so, Yuri kept moving forward. Each day, a little stronger. Each step, a little lighter. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about heartbreak. It was a story about hope.